Using the Reference Manager in Word by Dr. Nick Wilmore.
Hello, and welcome to my next session on this YouTube channel. My name is Nick Wilmore. I'm a lecturer with the social work course, and I'm trying to introduce you to some of the features that you will find on the Reference Manager tab that you will find in Microsoft's Word program. I find it's an incredible tool, and one that so few people actually have any idea is really there. So it's going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour, because I'm only going to concentrate on the bits that I find useful. There are going to be some bits you may want to investigate yourself when you've got some confidence. But what I would say to you is, have a look. It takes away the risk of getting your referencing and your citations right. And for me, that's a great thing, because as a marker, I find it really irritating when students make silly mistakes, which are avoidable. So this is one of my slots to give you some tips to avoid accidental errors. While we talk about accidental errors, let's talk about Microsoft, because inevitably a program like Word is a compromise, and it is never quite as stable or as consistent with every user having the same features. So let me say, to start with, I am going to be talking about the facilities that you will find in Word on a Word 365 home student subscription. So it's using the most recent updates. It is the one that's the monthly subscription. I know that there are variations if you've got a paid for version of Word, so the one-off license fee, and I will go through some of those differences later. But what I will do is try and leave any of the differences between the different versions of Word until later on in this clip. So in the early days, everything should apply pretty well consistently. I also use both the Mac and a PC, so I will be using some clips from both of them so you can see some of the different styles. But remember, they're a difference in style, not a difference in content. That actually what you put in and what you get out in your final assignment are pretty consistent. And that's because they're all trying to give you the recognized style, and I will be adopting, like many universities, the Harvard style. They are all trying to give you a Harvard style in your final piece of work.
We have decided we're going to put a citation into the Reference Manager. Now, the Reference Manager is found, if you look at the top bar of your Word program, you'll see it says References. And it's surprising how many people turn around to me and say, we've never noticed that before. So look for References, you click on that tab, and this brings you a whole new bar. Now, you will find it can give you things like a table of contents. It will allow you to insert endnotes and footnotes. It will also allow you to put in a table of contents. All things, if you're doing a bigger piece of work, are incredibly useful. What we're looking at today, though, is going to be in the middle here, where you've got an option around citations, and you'll see next to it the researcher. And I will come back to the researcher much later. The first thing you need to check is that you've got Harvard Anglia selected. If you click on the drop down, you'll see there's a range of different styles you can opt for. I'm using Harvard Anglia because that's the one that most universities in the UK are using. But if your course says something different, select the nearest drop down you can get. What I then want to do is I want to insert a citation. I click on the Insert Citations, and that then brings up a drop-down list. Straight away you can see the first drop-down list I can choose whether I've got an article in a journal, a book, website, films, interviews, and even usefully a miscellaneous, which just gives you basically every option. So I'm going for an article in a journal. It then gives me the choice. I can either put the authors in, or as sometimes happens, particularly with things like government reports, you've got a corporate author. You can tick that box and put in Department of Health, or you can just put in the author there. And if you look at the bottom, it actually shows you how it wants you to set them out with commas, semicolons, and repeats. Follow their style, because that way the computer knows how you're delineating a name and therefore how it must alter that in order to drop it into the Harvard style when it hits your bibliography. I'm going to put my author in there. So I'm going to infamously use somebody that I know. So I put that in. I put in the title of his article. This is something I've totally made up. So my apologies, John. I'm not adding to your workload. The journal. So I've put social policy. I've given it a year. I'm giving it a volume, giving it an issue, giving it pages. All the time, you'll notice my example along the bottom here will show you what it is looking for. So for each one, it will tell you, give you an example of what it's looking for. Now, you could, after all that, say, I want to see all the possible fields. So I just ticked that little box there, and it gave me all the different options. Very rarely do you need that because it's not part of the Harvard style. I wouldn't make the work. So in it goes, and it's now appeared as a citation. It's as quick as that. This is the hard way of putting stuff in, otherwise known as manually entering it. And I went through that so that you could see what sort of information it wants, link that to the discussion that I had in the previous clip around referencing using the Harvard system. So the idea is these two clips do actually align with each other. I am going to show you shortly a way of being able to take some shortcuts on this, which is always well appreciated. So that's showing you how to put something in. The next is, what if you want to put a citation? So I've put a couple of bits of text in there, which I've made up based on the article by Hester et al. And I really wanted to show you the two different ways you might want to use it. So if I use the second one to begin with, where I've got a piece of text where I have paraphrased what the journal article has said in their introduction, but I now need to cite that piece of work. So I put my cursor in, you can see it's there at the end. I then want to insert the citation from the list I have already put into the system. And here we can find there is Marianne Hester. So quick double click on that one, and in she goes. And there you've got one immediate reference with date, all in the correct format. Didn't take 2 seconds. That's the easy one. The other thing I might want to do is, I've already said Hester and et al. Argue that, so I've now quoted her. So what I'm doing now is I will again put her in. Now you can see it's putting the name in twice. Not good for your word count, not good for reading, and doesn't follow the convention. To fix it, I'm now going to right click on my mouse. It allows me to edit this citation, and that brings me up a little box. And there are several things I can do at this point. One of them is I can suppress the author so that the author's name is taken out. You could take out the year. I don't see why you would. But if you're going to, you can, let me just show you the suppressing the author. And there we go. So suddenly we've just got Hester et al. And the date. And that's now following the Harvard Convention and what we would expect to see. What you can also do within this, so if I'm going to go back to the original citation I put in, I can edit that citation. I can add pages. Because I've actually happened to have, this is almost a direct quotation, I'm just going to put in the page number it came from. And there it goes. It's put my page number in for me. It's all in the correct format. No mistakes there. Now, this is a minor time saver for you. Citations are not difficult. The bit that it does save time is when you come to have to put in your reading list. So if I'm going to put in a bibliography, I go back up to the top bar where I find bibliography. I click on the click on the down, and it gives me a choice of either works cited or bibliography. So I go for a bibliography, and there it is. It's all in there for me. It's as simple as that. And now, because I've followed their drop-down list in the box at the very beginning, all the fields are in there because I didn't leave any blank. I know that when it comes to the bibliography, everything is accurately done. No messing around. When you're looking at your citations, the key thing to remember in all of this, and I've just come back to my box that I showed you at the beginning, is getting that first piece right, whether it's an article or a book or a periodical or any other, whether it's a report, website, document from a website, anything like that. Know what you're dealing with and use it accurately. And this is what I was saying in the referencing clip as well. You need to be sure that you know what you're dealing with. The journals are what you should be aiming for alongside books. And for that, you need to make sure that it's got its issue numbers and its volume number. Once you've got that, you know it's an article in a journal and the rest flows. So long as all of these are filled in, you have done your journal correctly, and it will then appear in the bibliography accurately. I know I sound like I'm belaboring the point, but it's surprising how often people get that bit wrong. On my bar to the right-hand side, I can add something, or I can take it away. I can only take it away when I have removed all references to it in the text. So for instance, if I wanted to remove John Glasby, because I've not actually left him in the text, that is no longer grayed out. I can now take him out. It's as simple as that. And now what I do is I go to my bibliography, I click on the bibliography square. I've now got a little drop-down list at the very top. I can now update citations because I've taken John out. And there he is, he's gone. All done for you. It'll reorganize things. It'll make sure it's all in alphabetical order. It's there. It's one of those wonderful things that the computer will ensure that you're consistent. So when you put a citation in the text, you put it in the citation manager, the bibliography, every time you update, will make sure it's there, will make sure things are in the correct order. By clicking on an individual source, I can edit it through this, or I can go to the Citation Manager's master list. This is quite useful if you've got a number of sources already in your system from previous essays, because you can click on those, copy them across into your current list. You don't have to re-enter the details. There's me, John Glasby. I can copy him across, and there he is, he appears. And I can edit him, or I can add a new person, as I've already shown you. So the system is really flexible as to how you want to do it. And there he is, he's appeared back on the list. And as soon as I click on Update Citations, there he is, he's back in my citations again. It's a very simple piece of kit. This is the functionality that you will find in versions of Word going back to 2015 for sure, if not earlier. This part of it, dead easy. We do have now another section that we want to look at. So part 2, we're looking at the researcher. This is a relatively new function. It's been around for a couple of years. What it does is it allows me to put stuff into a Bing search bar. Now, that is a disadvantage because it's Bing, and I prefer Google Scholar. The problem with Bing is that it's not as flexible as Google Scholar. It doesn't seem to have as much subscribed to it. But what I do tend to find is that if I know what I'm looking for, I can put it in the Bing search bar, it will appear. Now, for the sake of today, I'm just going to find something quick and easy. So I'm going to, like with my other ones, yeah, I've put in domestic violence perpetrators. I've clicked return, let it sink. Now, the bit that I like about this is that when I come down to the search results, it gives me a choice of all, which is what it tends to select. I can look for books, I can look for journals, and I can look for websites. The fact that it has a separate one for journals, similar to Google Scholar, means that I can now be fussy about what type of material I get. So I'm not now at risk of getting blogs and unattributable material. So if there is Marianne Hester that I've used over here already. So let's find someone else. Here we go. Let's try Sarah Romans. So I've clicked on that article, given me the abstract. What I've now got though, is I can open it in a browser, which allows me to look at the article. But the other bit is that I can add this source as a citation. So if I've decided that actually this is what I want to use, or I've read it somewhere else and I've just found it using Bing, I can now add this source as a citation. I'm getting an error message at this point, but I'm not going to worry about that. Because when I go back to my citations, there we go. When I go back to my citations, there is Sarah Roman's article already put in. And if I go and check how it's edited, there you go. It's all in there for you. Both as an article in a journal, the title, the authors, the title, and all its attributions. So there you go. All there. Now all I have to do, update my citations, and there's Romans at the bottom. This is an absolute star. However, certain parts of Bing of the researcher only have the standard Bing. They don't have this ability to select between books, journals, websites, and so on. So that can be a little frustrating. And that's why I say to you, why I wanted you to see, first of all, why we need to know how to put things in manually. But this, if you've got it on your system, is an absolute time saver. one quick and easy way of entering into the reference manager. It really is as simple as that. Now, in this section, you will also find the table of contents. And what I'm going to do next is show you how you can create a table of contents quickly. So for your dissertation or other bigger pieces of work, you can create and constantly update a table of contents in exactly the same way as you're doing with the bibliography. And that's the joy of this. Table of contents. What I need to do is put some titles in. So one quick title. There you go. Couple of quick titles in there. The trick with this is you go back to home, you find your headings, you find your styles, you find your headings in there. So I'm going to put headings to, headings to, headings to. Now, you can always change colors, font sizes, and so on back to any house style that you want to follow. What matters is that you have it as headings to. And I'm going to put headings 1 as being my first. You can see how quick and easy that was to do. So now I go back to my references, I go for my table of contents, and I choose a style. And there it is. My table of contents with page numbers. And every time I change things, I can update my table. And you can either update just the numbers or you can update all the titles and all the numbers. So it does all the work for you based on you setting out your headings. Now you can imagine if it's a document you're editing quite regularly, having the ability to update this at a flick of a switch is so much easier. And you'll find that using the insert table of figures is exactly the same idea. So you insert captions against each of your tables. You then do the insert figures, and off it goes. It's one of those where, again, if you're doing a bigger piece of work, it's a labor saver. And what's more, it avoids accidental errors.
So I hope this was a helpful canter through the options. As I said to you earlier, it is something that's available within the Microsoft Word package. And for that, I'm happy to be supporting it and showing people how to use it, because I'm a great fan of stuff that you've already paid for, not paying extra for something you don't need. And thereby hangs the devil. There are plenty of other reference managers out there available online which you can use. The downside of a lot of them is that you have to have a subscription. And when I'm doing a dissertation or an assignment, I struggle to understand whether that's really justifiable, the cost. So I tend to recommend people use what is in Word already. I like the reference manager as a principle because it avoids accidental errors. It means that your ultimate referencing is going to look right. You're going to be using the right style. It also means that when you're putting stuff into the text and filling out the reference manager citation at the same time, again, there are no errors. You will be consistent all the way through. And I think that's the trick in all of this, is that by being a little bit consistent at the beginning and putting the work in, it avoids grief later on. And for that, we all must be pleased. So do have a play around. I think it was worthwhile. Interesting enough, when I've shown students at various stages, undergraduate and postgraduate, how to use the reference manager, it's surprising how many of them really take to it. Because I don't know about you, but I find putting the bibliography together utterly tedious and really can be quite stressful trying to get it in exactly the right format. And this is a way of avoiding all of that. And on a typical academic piece of work where you might have 20 or 30 citations, you could well be saving yourself half a day's work. And that to me is time well spent somewhere other than a boring part of the assignment. So I hope this was useful to you. Please do subscribe and please do add some comments so I know whether this is going down well or not, whether this is the sort of thing that people want to be seeing on the channel. I do this as a way of helping people move on and me having to repeat myself regularly in tutorials. And then students come back and say, what was it you were saying? A great way of being able to remember to look back. But that's all it is. It's not any great scheme to become a major publisher. This is me doing something to help you. All the best. Do subscribe and we'll catch up again later. Thanks very much. Bye.